Okay.
Sorry.
So starting recording.
I was just being a funny guy. And it blew up in my face because you took it seriously, which I didn't expect.
Fuck you.
Well, we are on now, so
Jesus.
that went live.
Good.
Good. Let the people know. Let me do
I think they know.
this. Get hype, feel the vibes, feel the music. We are here at Soccer Wise, our final show of the week. It has been an action-packed week. We've been covering the U.S. women's national team in the Olympics the entire week. Me and Tom have been giving you the best kayaking, canoeing, judo, fencing, gymnastics, and beach volleyball coverage anywhere this side of the Major League Soccer NWSL divide. You are welcome for that, and we will continue on in this show once again, Tom. Let us start by complaining about VAR in judo once again. It decides 2 medals here today. Let the people speak, Tom. Let the people be heard.
Game's gone, mate. Technology's ruined judo, football, and everything else, and darts, whatever else. No more technology, mate.
It is class that now, being a soccer person, I'm in on the like lingo because they do the same box. Because I think rugby started it, if I'm correct here, or maybe field hockey, one of the two, where they do like the box with the hand to show VAR. And now soccer has stolen it. Soccer does it. And therefore, when other people do it, I'm like, I know what that means. Hey, judo ref guy in your suit. I know what that means.
When I saw him do the little box, I was like, it's like the Leo DiCaprio meme, and you're on your couch. I was like, whoa, I thought that was just us.
And for a moment, you think they're doing a bit. Like when you see that clip that went viral where it was like some game on some random backfield somewhere in the world that clearly wasn't broadcast, and then the ref did VAR in the middle and like resets his own call, but like there's no video to watch. It kind of felt like one of those moments, except they actually had VAR and they were able to use it. We probably won't talk about that as much. We will probably talk about a bunch of moves in Major League Soccer. We're going to get all the latest scoops from Tommy over here because it is the season of joy for Tom, which means he doesn't sleep, he doesn't eat, he just works and works and works.
Crave the sweet release only death can provide.
And so we'll probably talk about some of those. Obviously, the huge trade for Columbus and New England that you broke and that now is official, as well as some other ones.
That was sweet of you.
Up.
Thank you for working that in. That was nice.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I got you. And then we're going to do a little Leagues Cup update. Some official things have happened. Some teams have clinched. Some teams have been eliminated. And then we're going to bounce around and just talk about some teams that interest us right now as we're watching. Leagues Cup has been fun because it is not 115 games at the same time on one day of the week that you can never watch. So I've enjoyed popping in for a half or two halves of most teams over the course of the last 3 nights. It is an off day, I believe, today, and then it comes back this weekend. As I mentioned, I'll be in Miami, and Inter Miami plays Tigres, dream matchup, and it, of course, is being played at Energy Stadium in Houston, because why wouldn't it be played at Energy Stadium in Houston? So
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I assume it's a home Tigres game is the point, and they're like one of the Actually, I should stop trying to pretend that there's like reasoning besides making money and selling tickets.
This is fair. Yeah, that's fair.
And then so we'll bounce around some teams that we want to talk about as well. I do have the quad box up because women's team foil fencing is coming on in the gold medal match, USA against Italy. So I will have to be reacting to that live. So I'm just warning you that's what's going on in the background. Shout out to Hootski and RG Loss for being in the chat, and anyone else alongside with us. Feel free to send comments, questions in there if you're watching live. What?
What they said in the comments was you might want to change the title. This is under U.S. Women's National Team post-game show and knockout preview.
Great call. Hey, everyone's on fire. Okay, that's done. Tom, let's get into your ice cream scoops. Let's get into the shops real quick. That was a good moment for all of us.
This has been good.
Let's start with the DeJuan Jones trade. DeJuan Jones traded from the New England Revolution, where he was drafted originally out of Michigan State as a forward in the same draft as Brandon Bai, who was drafted as an attacking midfielder and went on to become one of the best fullback pairings in Major League Soccer. He has been traded to Columbus for Will Sands, and I believe up to 600,000 in allocation money split across the 2 years. So 250, 300 this year, and then 250, 300 next year, however it fits together towards 600 going forward. This was a little bit shocking to me because when you talk about the Revs, and even if you want to say like, all right, they're last in the East, let's rebuild a little, let's rework a little bit. And we had some questions in the Discord and questions in some of our group chats about like, oh, who should punt on the season? Who should rebuild? Like all those things. And it's like, well, it's MLS. Everyone makes the playoffs. Does it really make sense for any teams? This would not have been the deal I would have expected. Talk me through the details here and then sort of your reaction.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to go here. The top line for me, because I like to focus on either the positive or what's happening rather than what didn't happen. Columbus Crew are getting an all-star level, fringe best 11 level left back, and we've watched Wilfried Nancy more or less every player he's have their career best year. So maybe there's another level for DeJuan Jones to hit, somebody with 7 or 8 U.S. international caps. I cannot believe they got this deal done. In a more pessimistic view, several sources across the league texted me the same thing, but I cannot believe New England did this. Sackable offense is one text that I got, and like that's a lot of the reaction that I'm kind of getting from other friends and other sources of the Columbus Crew are getting one of the best left backs in the league for 600,000, and Will Sands, and not to be dismissive of Sands, but on the Crew roster was somebody who wasn't playing. He kind of won a starting spot at the beginning of last year, tore his ACL. Really unfortunate for him. Right now, this iteration of the team, he was not playing at all. So they're trading a player that wasn't being used and 600,000 to get one of the best left backs in the league. On New England side of things, yes, it opens up salary cap flexibility. My immediate counter to that is, yeah, that's not something you say when you trade away a really good player. That's something you say when Gaston Jimenez eventually leaves the Chicago Fire. Good players cost money. I don't know if that's breaking news to you guys, but good players cost money. This was reminds me of the Aaron Herrera deal when he was traded from Montreal to DC. And it's like, well, he's on a big salary. I was like, that's really cool. You know what? I like having one of the best right backs in the league, and if you have to pay him 600,000, you pay him 600,000. So for DeJuan Jones, yes, it's not a cheap contract, but he is among the very best left backs in the league. The wingbacks are so important in this system. He hasn't played a ton of. Well, let me take that back. 'Cause he has played wingback in a back three, but that under Caleb Porter, that under Bruce Arena, interim coach last year, that's almost a different sport than playing wingback for Wilfried Nancy. So all of that to say is, even if this was a normal transaction where he went to another team that just plays a back four and we don't have the magic dust of Wilfried Nancy to sprinkle on top, I'd say a great trade for whoever's receiving DeJuan Jones for 600,000 plus Will Sands. Even more so for Columbus, but again, to be fair, that's only a Columbus thing because of what Wilfried Nancy has done. Yeah, I'm shocked, Dave. Where are you at on this?
I'm the same. I think you look at a few things. One, at some point for the Revs, like club identity matters, and who is more New England Revolution at this point than DeJuan Jones and Brandon Bye and Carlos Heel? Like that's the core of this team now. That has been up and down, but has had huge ups over the last few years. The second is like, there's no chance Columbus got this. This is one of those where you're like, no way. He is going to be both the best center back and the best center forward in the league in the next 5 months playing under Nancy. Like you just got, we talked about AZ Jackson and like how excited that I was about that. That was still potential that we thought Nancy could mold. DeJuan Jones, not potential. This is a borderline national team player. You said it. He is a best 11 and an all-star left back in Major League Soccer. He's already there. And then you spend the week we did in Columbus talking to the Christian Ramirez's and the Sean Zawadzki's about what Nancy does for you as a player and how he elevates your game and how he changes your game and how he opens your mind and all these other things and challenges you. And you're like, oh, so you're going to take that and now up his game and up his level? Like the potential here is crazy. I am not surprised that every other source in MLS was like, this doesn't sound legal. Like, don't like go straight, fantasy football style, go to the commissioner and be like, you got to avoid this trade. Like this, they're not allowed to trade Will Sands for DeJuan Jones. And for Columbus, credit to them in that they've handled their cap pretty cleanly to the fact that they can absorb DeJuan Jones at this moment, because that's the 600,000 is so small. because the contract is very large for a fullback in MLS. And we have talked about this often, not as often on Soccer Wise because we just started. So let's do it here. It's a salary cap league. You can only really afford to put money at a high level to some positions unless you're able to cleanly cut your spending across your team. So for the most part, teams are trying to save money on some of those positions that they think they can get away with so that they can invest big on center backs, D-mids, and then, of course, normally your DPs and U22s go into the attacking side of the field, which just costs more. So DeJuan Jones we're hearing what? It could elevate up to $1 million at some point over the course of this contract. Like, that's a lot for a fullback in MLS. And I think it's not something that the Columbus has to shy away from because they're getting so much production from pieces that they didn't expect to or they didn't need to, and that they've had on really good contracts going forward. Look at Matan, look at Mo Farsi, look at all these pieces that they have that are big. So I think all of that's huge. On the Rev side, I will say the contract you give DeJuan Jones is sort of that win now contract of like, all right, we'll figure out the money later, and then we'll sort of try and flip the team. And like, I think Tim Bezbachenko actually called it the salary cap monster, where he's like, when you win, it gets harder and harder because when you win, the bonuses players get come back into your salary cap. Everyone wants a new contract. Everyone wants to make more money. You want to re-sign everyone and keep everyone's options because the team is good and like you want to keep being a part of that and all of that. And so I think the Revs signed a deal being a record-breaking supporter shield team coming off of that, saying like, this is the group that does this. And now you're starting to get up to the extended contract years where you're like, well, are we really going to pay a fullback this much to be 14th in the Eastern Conference? But that's your fault. That's not like, that's the contract you chose to sign because of the team you chose to put together. And I guess the hope would be coming out of all of it that you would get more. Like you would be able to help your team more than saying we opened up space to go get someone else. Like you should be able to say off a deal like this, instead of a Will Sands, and this isn't a knock on Will Sands because I think pre-ACL, I thought he was going to be an MLS starter. You should be getting a 17 or 18-year-old that is like, this player could actually be the next DeJuan Jones.
Yeah.
And like, we're going to get a long-term play and a little bit of money and cap relief. And like, that's the whole gamble together. This one is purely just the cap relief.
Yeah, but I will say again, I've been very critical of New England in this. To be fair to them, one, like last year, Columbus transferred Lucas Arayan, obviously before they signed Diego Rossi. Like, I don't even think that I reported that until within like 24 hours after Zelarayan was gone or something like that. Like, but my whole point is that like, just because they haven't signed anybody right now this second with the space doesn't mean that they're not going to. Caleb Porter spoke at a press conference last week, something like that, that they have 3 targets and that they hope that they hit all 3. One is Luca Langoni. I was told, that that's still in the final stages. They're still working on it. Going to try to get an update at some point soon. Regardless, that's one. And then I don't know who the other ones are. So maybe one of them's a left back. But to be fair, they do really like Will Sands, and they really love Peyton Miller. Again, he's only 16 years old. He's only he's played their last 4 games. Really, really highly talented again. But again, he's 16. So that's why I think the need for somebody like Will Sands, who it's not at the same financial investment, obviously, as DeJuan Jones. This is not the same quality. But this is a player who can be a starter but like not freak out if Peyton Millers are getting a few of these games, to continue developing. But again, like this is all what like the critiques are all fair because anytime that you have Carlos Hill in his prime, you should be in a win now mode. I know it doesn't always work out like that. And on Carlos Hill, I just put up the tweet like he took to Instagram and on his Instagram story was like, I cannot believe that you're gone, especially not like this. So he does not seem to be a fan of this trade. He said, I love you, I wish you the best, and I'm going to miss you very much.
Shout out to Sam Minton in the chat who brought that up.
Yes, well done, Sam.
That is like the last thing you want right now. The team isn't good. You have an unknown future. I understand Carlos Hill's under contract and is committed in that way to the project, but like, I don't really want to piss that guy off more than I have to if I'm the New England Revolution at this point. So that part feels weird. It also feels messy then of like, when do you tell that player and like, what's the messaging there where it's like, he's not blindsided and all those things. I think a lot of that is tough. I came on the show, I think last week and was like, people need to be talking about Peyton Miller because everyone was talking about Cavan as they should be. But like Peyton Miller, 16 years old, is doing special things. I love him at that left back spot. He was a winger. They're converting him to the fullback spot. And like, that's an exciting player, I think, going forward in the future. But there's still a gap there between where he's at and his ceiling and what he can do at a first team level consistently and like where they're at right now. You talked about the good side. Let's talk Columbus on this. Like, boom, whoa. Max Arston has been awesome this year. Yaya Boa helped them win MLS Cup last year. They have
he's third string
still. Now he's third string. He's going to be playing for Chattanooga in a couple of weeks if he doesn't watch out. Based off the speed of the way all of this is going, we have him immediately. Shout out to you and Charlie, by the way. I was looking for DeJuan Jones' contract, and I was on the Revs page on our salary table and depth charts, and he's already on the Columbus page. That's how we roll at SoccerWise. And if you don't have access to this, subscribe to our Patreon. You get the depth charts, you get the salary cap table, so you can look at all of this and how it fits together and how it all makes sense. We obviously slot him in immediately at left wing back. That is where he will start. He will be very good. As I made the joke with Nancy, like, I think there's a chance he plays all over the field for this team. And I think the key with this team is like, oh, how many D-mids do they have? How many center backs do they have? Everyone can play everything. So whether this means DeJuan Jones is playing right wing back so that Mo Farsi can play right center back, or DeJuan Jones is playing left center back so Malte Oddmanson can play in the middle, or so that Sean Zawadzki can play higher and Moreira can play wide. It is just another piece to move all the pieces around and keep giving them depth. And it's a high-level one. It's a guy who's played in big games already. He won a supporter shield. He's played in the playoffs. Like, he has a lot of what you want going forward. And it does feel like the European dream for him is probably done, which is, I think, key for a team that will probably be selling over the next 18 months.
Yes. So I have plenty of background on this. Like, he's been linked with, like, there have been, the interest and stuff has been real. Clubs, like, I forget if it was Standard Liège or Anderlecht. Like, good level clubs, like Europa League, Champions League, whatever, but like in the non-top 5 leagues, the feedback I got from sources was that he was somebody who would really be enticed by like the Bundesliga or a top 5 league and wasn't really too juiced about even going to a top club in in a non-top 5 league. So I think where he was at, he would be fine with signing new contracts and with an MLS club with the Revs than it would be to go to, say, Standard Liège. So to your point, yeah, it is much more likely that he stays like long term because, like, again, and then unless if a Bundesliga team comes in, then like it's gonna be a pretty decent fee. So, but for the most part, guys, you're on the right track. You're all correct with that.
And I think Columbus is trying to figure out that future for themselves of what are players that are going to be there long term, and how do you have enough pieces there to then be able to make the next Zelarayan for Cucho move, right? Because the assumption is Cucho is not in Columbus for the next decade. And so you want enough of a core built that when you do move him out and bring the next one in, like there is enough of a culture to bring that player into and to maintain performances. You're also probably talking about a post-Nancy world at some point as well. So that's something big. We had a question in the chat from T-Mac who says, how did they fit him in cap-wise? Shout out to that. Anything with a Y's on the back end, I already like it. And I think sort of the point I was making is how clean the cap is for Columbus. They've got their DPs in Rossi and Cucho, Nagbe on that line. Moreira re-signed a new deal at $800,000 a year. Yeboah is coming towards the end of his deal, which is one of the big ones. And I think I will be shocked if, Yaya Yeboah won't be playing for this team next year. He may not be playing for this team by the end of this year. He's on the end of his deal. Like, if Columbus wants to get anything for him, they might go out and try and do that. I'd be surprised if someone gave something up for him. So he probably will play out the rest of this year. Hinestroza, they just sent on loan. Outside of that, no one's on max TAM. No one's on a crazy deal. Like, they have, again, they had the cap space to make this move because they have handled things so cleanly and so well over the year. Malte Oddmanson, Camacho, like all these players are on 550 or less. And that is pretty much the entire roster.
And I'll add the outbound transfer of Aiden Morris. You get whatever the $3 million allocation money for that into the Middlesbrough. Then I've reported, I know there was a question in the chat about it. They have rejected bids from a Scottish club for Jason Russell-Rowe. Like, that's another commodity where you could get allocation money if that valuation is met. You know, what I was told is, the player would want to go somewhere where he could play more, go to Scotland and again, be a regular player. but the crew love him, and the crew love him as depth rotation, all of that. So that's another thing that could happen. They could still pull that lever. And then guys, kind of back to DeJuan on the field. Caps in the Discord asked us, could we see DeJuan Jones play a little right center back in Columbus? Crew only have 4 center backs with Zawadzki in the midfield, and Derek Jones yet to play a minute at center back. He's about the same size as Steven Moreira. Nancy loves the attacking outside center backs. I love that take. I also see DeJuan more at right wing back than on the left in Columbus. Nancy tried inverting wing backs last year. And Yeboah and Luis Diaz. The difference is DeJuan Jones is pretty purely 2-footed. Like he's played left back for so long. You forget that he's not left-footed. So I think that's not the same. And then as he has Andres Herrera, who's they're nearing a deal to bring him in on loan from River Plate, that would be on the right. So that's why I think DeJuan Jones is going to predominantly play left wing back. But Goss, do you see minutes for him at either left center back or right center back where he can play the Andy Nahar role a couple years ago and the Steven Moreira role?
Yeah, 100%. Nance likes those wide center backs to be able to take the ball at pace, beat defenders 1v1. He likes for them to be able to underlap in the attacking third and overlap, which takes you into a natural fullback position to hitting crosses, which is what Jones does really well. So I think he's an option at right center back. I think he's definitely an option at left center back for this group. And I wouldn't be surprised if he played both of those positions as rotations become necessary or if injuries happen. And I would actually say his time at the Revs, he has gotten so comfortable on the left that I actually think he has struggled on the right. When by his
That's a good point, man. That's totally fair.
Yeah, and where you're like, oh, now he's back because he likes to play in field and connect and link up. And then when he's on the right, he kind of gets stuck, I think, feeling like he has to get to the end line to play in crosses, which he doesn't do as often on the left side. But he is a very versatile piece. I wouldn't be shocked if he played at the center back spots for this team. And I would add, he actually brings a level of physicality in there, which Moreira does as well, that some of the true center backs on Columbus don't bring, right? Like that's been one of their problems in the past is especially balls in the air, when Zawadzki's back there with Cherebko and Schulte, they struggle with balls in the air. And I think DeJuan Jones brings a little bit more muscle to that position and can be even helpful as an added asset in that way on top of the things Nance likes to do. So I wouldn't be shocked if he played in that way. It's another great move for Columbus. They keep doing it. It's annoying. Let's move on to one other official piece of news before we get into your scoops. Javane Brown, picked up by Real Salt Lake off waivers after being waived by Vancouver Whitecaps. We mentioned this on Tuesday. We didn't understand why he got waived. It was very odd. You put RSL in the short list of teams you wouldn't be surprised to see him end up on. And they made the move.
That was a little wink, wink. Yeah.
Ooh, Tommy. Tommy's got the scoops in there. Also, are you wearing a ODP jersey?
I am. Team New Jersey. It still fits. They gave me a very large shirt when I was...
This is pure American soccer with the headband and the AirPods.
Team New Jersey, man. I'm so mad that I didn't get more merch. Obviously the jerseys don't fit anymore, but how good for my brand, Team New Jersey.
How often do you as a Jersey person jump into the comments on all of those Reddit posts, tweets, whatever, of if all the states had their own team, which would win? And everyone's always New Jersey. We get Josie.
Obviously.
New Jersey, we claim everyone.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously. I'm a walking comment
Texas,
section.
California, New Jersey post those the most often.
Yeah. That's the winner circle, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
Long Island, we'd take our own state and we'd still win. Think about
you and the Nealis brothers?
The Nealis brothers, Tim Parker, Crystal Dunn. I'm already.
You guys, okay. I was about to say, you have a lot of dudes who kick people and not a lot of dudes who.
Joe Scally.
He'd be hard to play against. And then you said Crystal Dunn.
Yeah, Chris Armas.
Oh, no. Again, the common denominator here is dudes who kick people. And then Crystal Dunn.
David Goss, yellow card magnet. That's what we do. That's how we roll. Let's talk Javane Brown for a moment. I think this one's similar to Jones, but RSL have just been hurting along the back line, and Brown has shown he's versatile. I wouldn't be shocked if the majority of minutes he plays on this team are at the center back position.
Yeah, I think we haven't seen him play center back in a back four. That's my only reservation here. But yeah, the versatility I think is going to be really good. And Pablo Mastroeni will try players at different positions. And again, sometimes he doesn't have a choice. It's just out of necessity. Yeah, I really like this move for Real Salt Lake. I'm still fuzzy on the whole wave thing. What I was told before he was placed on waivers, they were close with a trade with Real Salt Lake for Javane Brown, so much to the point where he left, like said goodbyes to everybody and left. And then the deal kind of fell apart at the last minute. And it's just surprising to me that there was not another deal to be found. I will say, well done then in some regards to Vancouver for being like, hey, we said that you're about to leave. Like, we won't say, hey, put all the stuff back in your locker and come back. So Vancouver have consistently been on the human side of things, on the positive end. I'm just still surprised that he had to be waived and that there wasn't another trade to be found. But again, that's flipping to me because I'm going to go ahead and assume that they tried that and they thought of this and this isn't a new idea to them. So I'm just confused how it all happened, but it all happened. It was amicable from what I was told between player and club, and now Javane Brown's in Real Salt Lake.
And it's, as I said, it's a good pickup for a team that's been hurting. And, like, if he doesn't play, great. That means RSL's having the year they'd like to, where Justin Glad is healthy and Andrew Brody's healthy and Vera's healthy and they don't need to move pieces around. But if they need to, it is a good break for emergency option for them to have. I think playing Philip Quinton less at right back is probably a good thing for everyone. I think maybe helping Pody Hidalgo at center back if Glad again gets hurt. Like, that's another option for this team. And it's a team where, with ownership taking over and the front office moving, they are still kind of getting off some old deals and figuring out some new deals. And so if you can pick up a player like this without having to trade or use up allocation money or spend a big roster spot or salary spot, like, that's pretty big for this team because they still need an infusion of talent. Tom, we have a few questions in the chat. They are not done. It doesn't feel like trying to find the high-end moves either.
No, Real Salt Lake have had multiple bids rejected for DP attacking midfielder. His name is Pavel Solkic. I was filibustering a little bit because I was getting scared of the pronunciation. Didn't want to get it wrong. Anyway, this is a Czech Republic attacking midfielder. He's 23 years old. He had 18 goals and 6 assists in around 2,300 minutes last year. What I was told is this is one of a few final targets that they are at the end of their search to add a designated player attacker. And I say attacker just to be careful because I think what we see with this player, he's played most of his minutes at 10. He could also play center forward. He could also play on either wing. He's also played a little bit deeper. I don't think that would be something that Real Salt Lake looking for. But my whole point is that the way Chicho Arango has played 9.5 this year and played it to an MVP level, like, they could get a more like 9 type player than a 10. Like, it doesn't need to be a pure chance creating number 10. Though I think that would work very, very well too, and probably the direction I would go. But I think that you're gonna I'm just being careful to not blanket say DP10 because I'm not 1,000% sure that'll exactly be what it is. Anyway, Solk is one of a few final targets. Whether he ends up being the player signed remains to be seen because, again, there are multiple active conversations for DP.
You better believe he's going to be sulking after he listens to this show and your pronunciation of his name. Nailed it. That makes sense on the positional thing. Matt Crooks as well, when he does play, he is not a true chance creating 10. He is more of a box crashing goal scorer, and that is a lot of where Chicho drops in. So, like, even if you sign a player who's a quote unquote 10, they don't have to be a pure sit in the hole and create chances from their player because of what Arango's capable of and because of what Luna's capable of. And Andres Gomez, right? Both those players can come in field, create. Luna prefers to come in field when he picks that ball up, and so he's living in that 10 space anyway. So I think it makes sense to say high level attacker, one that can play anywhere across that. Those are the 4 you want on the field, and those are the 4 that give you the best chance to win. And like, we can call them starting position whatever we want going into it. And I think that's exciting for RSL fans because it feels like this group with that added addition is probably enough to make an MLS Cup run in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and that's their idea. So another kind of piece of news from Real Salt Lake is that Diego Luna's been linked with Chivas and Club America. And they are interested, but they're not the only ones. So what I was told is that clubs in Spain, Italy, Belgium, a couple other places in Europe, they have reached out about hey, what would it take? What salary expectation? What do you think it would take for the fee? Stuff like that. That's preliminary. That happens all the time. I don't want to. I'm trying not to overplay this. There is a lot more interest in him, and I would very much assume his next move is to Europe. Part of the reason he signed with Real Salt Lake from El Paso was because, hey, we have clubs in Europe, so we connected. whatever happens down the line, we know that that's a goal of yours. That like, hey, we want to help facilitate that. Like that was part of it. Like so, I'd be unless that one of the Mexican teams blow him out of the water with salary, which could happen, and same thing with the transfer fee to Real Salt Lake. I'm very much assuming he's going to Europe. And the second part of this is I know that the club are absolutely intent on Luna and Gomez are not leaving this summer.
Okay. Came in hot on that. Finished hard on that.
Okay. What are you like upset that I had a good ending to a sentence rather than just kind of drifting off?
Yeah, I was a little bit thrown off, and
I'm growing.
I was supposed to pick up. Yeah, I am very proud of you for that one, and proud of RSL for not just shipping players and trying to make money and trying to win things, because that is, in the end, it is a small part of being a professional sports team, and so I appreciate them taking that one on. I would be excited to see them make another big signing and add to it. Hit us with the rest of it. Give me some more ice cream. Give me some more scoops.
Yeah, let's go with Charlotte FC. We're going to talk about them in depth a little bit later, but they are finalizing a deal to sign Israeli youth international forward Aidan Toklamati from Maccabi. Gassi, I was hoping you were going to pick me up there.
Is he Netanya as well? No, he's a different team, right?
Petah Tikva. I feel like when we first talked about it on the show, you picked me up. So I threw the alley.
Let's start with Idan, by the way. First name's
Idan.
Sorry. We'll move on from there now. Yeah.
Idan Toklamati.
I wasn't going to correct you until you brought yourself
until I asked. I literally asked for it. That's on me. The transfer fee will be in the ballpark of $3.5 million. And they're just figuring out final details of, maybe that doesn't make sense to go to Crown Legacy at first. I don't know, right? Like, we'll kind of they're figuring out the final details, but that deal is getting done. Another one for me, Matisse Albert, a poorly kept secret. I think it's out of the bag. I don't know if Borussia Dortmund officially announced it or not, but he's playing in U19 or U17 games for Borussia Dortmund. U.S. Youth International Matisse Albert. He is 15 years old. He left the LA Galaxy Academy. He has a French passport, so that helps facilitate a move to Europe. And he has joined the Borussia Dortmund Academy, and he's very highly rated from the scouts I've talked to. David Goss, what do you think?
He is one of the big prospects. Like when you go into youth stuff over the last year or two, everyone says Mathieu Albert on Albert. I think it is. His dad is French. No, that's not on you. That's like on a thing that some people say is right, and I don't know that I've heard him say it yet, so I can't confirm. But I believe his dad is French, so he had a passport, which was why it was assumed that he would not come through the Galaxy into the first team because he was going to go to Europe, and like that was the option. He is a very tall winger who can score goals. So the attraction, I think, is he's already grown to a level where he's ready to be a pro physically, and he is very skilled for his size. And like if he can put that all together and keep being able to play against stronger players and continue to progress, there's a lot of excitement there for who he can be. His Galaxy Academy group was really good. They won the Next Cup this year. They went to the GA Cup final. I think they had 3 or 4 players at the All-Star game. They are super talented. So I would say in watching them, he has not shined in what I've seen, but like he is also a kid and it is really hard. And that is game states and circumstance and all of that. So I think Dortmund is a team where we have seen that they have an understanding of like how to take a player from where they are and help them get there. And I think this is a good move from him in the context that he was always going to make a European move and go into an academy. And like we have seen how tough it is. If you are not from that academy, they don't owe you anything when you come in, and you have to earn your spot and earn your time. And a lot of players have washed out and come back out the other side. And I think Dortmund is as safe a place as you can go for a player like this.
Yeah, I'm excited. Again, like scouts that I was talking to at GA Cup, we're raving about him. And like you said, he put up a lot of goals. He's in a very good team. And again, I'm super excited to see how he develops.
The Charlotte one is odd because I've talked to a few people now who have seen him play and like looking at it, he scored in the Israeli second division. That's not really the level you talk about $3-4 million. It feels like, and I think this is the right thing to do, this feels like we want to buy now than after. And I think I've been ranting about this for a week of like all of these players in Mexico and Central America and all of that. You let them go play at Copa America and MLS teams missed out on all of them. Mm-hmm. This is one of those moves. And Charlotte, to their credit, have done this, right? Where they've used Crown Legacy in a way to secure players. We saw Petkovic play yesterday in Leagues Cup to secure players that they think have a future. What's tough about this for me is that it's not like their first team starting lineup is loaded. So like if you've got $4 million to spend, is there not players that you could bring in to get yourself up the standings right now. And if you're going to do both, that's great. Like, I don't care then.
But
I got to see
they're
that.
doing both. They're doing both. Like, they're going to add a designated player. Like, that's absolutely.
Ooh. All right. Let me ask you this one before we get out of. Or do you have any more?
No. Is that not enough? Am I not good enough for you?
Tom's having a tough day. As he potentially missed out on one scoop by 1 second for 1/2 inch. And it's the worst thing that's ever happened to him. Whiskey and Modelo asked me this question on the weekend, which I put in the Monday mailbag show, which if you haven't listened to, go back and listen to. Great questions. You can enter those via Discord if you are a subscriber to Patreon. So go to our Patreon, SoccerWise, all of our social, SoccerWise HQ, to follow us, to subscribe, everything like that as we continue to add shows, add content, all these other things. We did our second ever private happy hour yesterday for our highest level MVP subscribers. We're going to get the next one on the books for in a week or two as well.
Later this time.
What?
We'll do it later this time.
Yeah, and we're going to do it we're going to do a happy hour at a non-happy hour time.
rather than noon Pacific time.
Yeah, we're working on that one. It didn't really click for either of us that people to come to a live thing have to be available for a live free time. So we're all learning together. You know, God's working on all of us. So we're trying. But Whiskey and Modelo asked this question, which I hadn't thought about, and I answered it a little bit. And now I've gone and chatted with some people. I want to let you fire off first, and then I'll come back in with what I've learned. And it said, curious to get some MLS team CSO's perspective on Next Pro and how they wish it was utilized by independent teams. Are there certain profiles of players that they would wish the two current independent teams focused on? And then as an example, Whiskey and Modelo brings in future U22 players like what Crown Legacy and Charlotte did in their first year, or do they view them purely as competition to help their second team players develop and prepare for the first team? Does this trigger anything for you?
I don't have any idea, and it is interesting that it's not something I thought about because, like, I think that, like, I'm trying to, Crown Legacy, like, do they really care about what the other independent MLS Next Pro team does? Like, I don't really think that they do. Like, yeah. Maybe they would if for some reason one of these independent clubs had like 25-year-olds that were like that would be like a really good USL Championship team. Maybe that'd be a little different. But as far as I'm concerned, like they can't, like, Crown Legacy can't control what Philadelphia does, who can't control what Cincy does, who can't control what the LA Galaxy do, right? Like, so I think that it's more like that than anything else.
Yeah, I think my answer was probably the second more than the first originally, and I went and talked with a few people who work in this space specifically, like working on two-team facing front office people from MLS clubs, and they kind of were like, we haven't really thought about it 100% in that way. Some of the answers I got was like the expectation with the salary numbers that most of the independent teams are spending is they're not really going to afford a true U22 prospect. Like, we just talked about $4 million as an outlay for that
would run the entire team for a season.
Exactly. So the odds that player gets brought in by a Carolina core and a Chattanooga and what Cleveland's around the corner or whatever else is going on.
R.I.P. Rochester.
Bridgeport, right? Bridgeport, Connecticut. Shout out to Bridgeport. Just New Jersey guy doesn't care about the rest of the tri-state area.
How many? There's so many teams to know.
I know.
I know. It's like, yo, this could have been a good bit if you just piped in a few completely fake teams to see if I was just like full shit, just going, oh yeah, dude, totally. Oh no, I've heard of that too.
Fayetteville has a decent squad coming back next year, which I do actually think is a USL League One team that's coming down the pike. Going forward. But for the most part, yeah, that's the idea is there's not that much money in those teams. And so the number one goal is to be super competitive and have an environment that's hard for players to go and play at. That's the thing that MLS Next Pro is lacking because they left USL, and that's what USL has, which is why it doesn't make sense and why they're still trying to build it up and add to it. And so those were the answers I got for the most part of where they sit. Now, I will say, though, in like you're talking about Crown Legacy doesn't Philly and all of that, like The way MLS works is they're like, we should have more players to sign and sell, so we're going to create a U22 initiative. So MLS could create an MLS Next Pro at a league level, more initiatives to push teams and push contract styles and all that type of stuff. It's probably something that will come as things build. Right now, they're just hoping that independent teams can stand on their own 2 feet because, as you said, RIP Rochester, that happened quick and fast out the gate. Let's talk Leagues Cup. As we're talking about things that were invented by Major League Soccer and concocted, let's talk about the Leagues Cup competition going on right now. 2 teams have officially clinched their spot at the top of their groups. DC United and Austin FC, the Continental Giants, both of them. DC blows Santos out with a 3-0 win. That one was last night to go along with their penalty kick shootout victory after a 3-3 draw in Atlanta, which was a wild game over the course of the weekend. So they've clinched their spot into the next round. And then Austin have knocked off Pumas and Monterrey.
Incredible.
Be able to get to the top of the group. So, Tom, explain to me why Austin is the favorite in both Leagues Cup and now Supporter Shield and MLS Cup.
Because game's not played on a spreadsheet, mate. 3-2 win on Pumas. That was the number that mattered. 2-0 over Monterrey. Those are the numbers that matter. I don't need any more stats.
The 3-2 win over Pumas was also down a man for most of it. Tom's point is being that their XG was like way lower in both those games, but the game's not played on a spreadsheet. And it's all about heart, grit, and desire. And no one exemplifies that more than Austin FC over the last 2+ years. So shout out to Austin for giving their fans something to enjoy and something to do. RG Loss, I believe, is an Austin fan. And says Austin just likes playing big teams, not small Caribbean teams. Because remember in CONCACAF 2 years ago, their debut appearance in that competition, they lost to a Dominican side or a Haitian side? Haitian side in Dominican Playing Republic. In Dominican Republic, yeah. Shout out. Well, that's a good vacation. I mean, how are you going to turn that one?
All of the above, yeah.
Chance to go to DR and lose. That's a big opportunity. And I will say we had a little convo about this before Leagues Cup started of like, who are the teams that should care about this the most and blah, blah, blah. DC, this is like a thing that you can go far in and you can like be relevant. It would be helpful to do it in your own stadium and not play home games in Philadelphia and like have an opportunity for your fans to watch your team. I think one of the reports about this was like, they're not too concerned because they hadn't really sold that many tickets. And it's like, well, that's doubly bad. It is not better to say, oh, we could go play in Philly because no one was going to come anyway. Like, don't worry, double jeopardy on company property with company property. Like, you're in a bad spot if that's the situation. But DC need to win. Like, that's the only way you fix any of this. And so going further in this one is big. The eliminated teams so far are Puebla, Red Bull New York, and FC Dallas. Do any of those trigger you? Are you worried about any of that?
Worried about Red Bulls a little bit, yeah. But, like, again, you could very quickly be like, well, they lost 2 penalty shootouts. So, like, it's not too worrying, except that, like, I don't know. We've been talking on the show
that... one goal in 2 games at home. I think that's the part that's tough.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
Particularly the Red Bull game on Tuesday, in which the goalkeeper ran off the field because he thought the ball went out for a goal kick, except the ball stayed in play and the Red Bulls didn't score. And then I don't even know how to explain a couple of the goal line clearances, or like, was it Elias Manuel who made a tackle inside the 6 that worked as a shot, and the keeper was like on his back and still saved it. So they might just be cursed, but also it's a quality thing. But no, Red Bull's more so because we've been saying, like, I've been putting them in that, like, the top 6 I think are like the inner circle contenders. You can maybe, cut that into 4, and then I put the Red Bulls in that next tier, and again, eliminated on 2 draws and 2 penalty shootout losses or not, like, really disappointing not to get to the group stage.
And I would add, not having Forsberg is huge for this team.
That's fair too.
But they have the same roster without Forsberg as they had in the past, and like, they were good enough to be competitive. So they should be able to carry a little bit of quality and then say like, oh, okay, if Forsberg's healthy for the playoffs, we have a shot. Without him, it's probably an uphill battle, but you would like to be able to see them get some results at home without a player like that, because pretty much the entire team that has qualified for every playoffs for the last 12 years is still a part of that group going forward. I will say for Dallas, like, with the timing on Peter Luccin and the way they've played since, you're like, it's probably too late to really make a run in the league, but they've played a lot better. And so you get a reset on this, and to fall to St. Louis, and then to be pretty toothless against Juarez, where you start Farrington and Musa up top, Areola's in the team. Like, this felt like a pretty strong group for FC Dallas. I watched the first half as this one went along, and like Musa had 2 good looks, and otherwise they just were not dangerous going forward. And I think that's pretty frustrating because this was an opportunity for Dallas a little bit. Let's talk about
a bonus ice cream shop that I have tweeted. The Ipswich Town. Wait.
Do it.
The Ipswich Town interest in Peter Musa. That's legit. I don't know if offers are coming or not. It would have to be really expensive for Dallas to consider. I'm talking like, what was Almada, 21 million, something in that ballpark. But the interest is real. Is what I can say.
Would you?
No. I don't know, man. If it was 22 million, maybe, and it would have to be Musa coming to me and saying, "I really want this." It would have to be both of those things.
Yeah. If it was 21 million for me, no question I would do it. Because you would make so much. I mean, as a fan, I'd want to hear the Huns say, like, this is money we're going to reinvest in the team. But, like, he came for what? Between 9, 10, and 11?
10 up front with 3 million in add-ons.
So you double that out the gate. You get all of the money back to respend.
In a lost year, no less.
And that's the other thing. You're not going to win MLS Cup this year. So can you start doing the work to have that next player come in preseason? Can you spend enough money for them to be available in January? It's not a guarantee that the next player will hit any faster than Musa, and you might be a year behind now where that next player takes till June and July of next year. But if you're going to have a new coach anyway, like, here's an opportunity to spend some serious money. And I don't know, could be interesting as well for Dallas with the, like, who could you bring back as well? Because Weston McKennie, I think it's interesting that was never a conversation. Like, FC Cincinnati comes up, and it's like, oh, he'll consider it. He's not even looking at his own club.
Do you see FC Dallas paying between 10 and 12 million in salary? No.
If they sell Pitt or Musa,
I don't think
for
so.
an $11 million.
I don't think so.
And I think that's really tough if you're a Dallas fan to hear. Because
is it?
Yeah. Because, like, that should
because you won't pay a central midfielder $12 million a year?
That's fine. But I would say, like, if an FC Dallas Academy player is coming back to MLS as a successful European player who's part of the national team, my team should be in the conversation that they could come play here. That's what I would want if I was a fan.
I get the sentiment, but maybe I'm being too micro rather than macro. Like, the micro here is, I completely get why.
Okay, that's fair.
Bless your heart.
Let's roll into the. But, like, all right, let me do one.
Let's not roll into it. Let's roll out.
The Brian Reynolds of the world, like, all these players where it's like, whether it's loan, signing, whatever, it's like the first option should be to come home. And then the second option should be, like, the whole thing of, like, Clint Dempsey couldn't go home. There was no home for him when he came to MLS. Michael Bradley was the same, blah, blah, blah. That shouldn't happen anymore.
What are we talking about?
I guess Bradley, what? You're saying Metro Stars or Chicago?
If you're gonna try to get out on a technicality, I'll let it happen because of the Metro brand. But
his dad was the coach. He wasn't, like, growing up in the academy. They didn't even have one.
Sure, that boy's New Jersey through and through. That's
oh, you have to have him for your national team. That's why you're making sure there's no questions out in the media that I could use in an investigation later to be like, Tom really questioned whether Michael Bradley was actually from New Jersey on this day. I did get a picture of him wearing a Canadian hockey jersey earlier today from someone who used to work with him, which is cool. Random as well. Let's talk about the teams that we're enjoying, or the teams that we're curious about. We are just going to name random teams and then talk about them. We haven't really planned.
Dude's talking sports.
Dude's naming things, random dudes. Sports. Tom, go.
Yeah, for the first team, I would say Charlotte. I really liked. Maybe really liked is probably too strong because it was a really fun game. I thought last night against Cruz Azul in the way that, like, duels and Ashley Westwood's jersey being ripped and Adilson Miranda's lip being split and Yorgos Giacomakis being full Yorgos Giacomakis for 90 minutes for Cruz Azul. I liked all of that. I thought that was good, and I thought that was unsurprising that they could rise to that challenge, rise to that type of physicality and everything else. What they need is more top-end quality. And first of all, I will say I really like Nikola Petkovic. I hate him as playing as a number 10. And, like, I don't think anybody's under any illusion that he is a 10. Like, I think that was partly just to try to get him more minutes, but he looks lost. Like, there's a few times where he tried to It was a couple blind flicks where he's like, well, I hope that Swiderski is somewhere near me because I don't want the ball with my back to goal and like with the center back coming at me. But like, so what I would like to see more of, if even before they sign a DP, Swiderski playing off Patrick Ajamang. That feels like an obvious best 11 right now, but that's fine. I think that they might be pivoting to a DP10, which because Swiderski's still here and there's no guarantee that he is going to leave, and so that there isn't a risk where if you signed a DP10 and Swiderski leaves and then Patrick Ajamang gets injured, there is nobody to play up top. So at least if you have Swiderski and Ajamang, you could use that DP spot on a 10. I'm very much expecting them to do that. I'm still expecting the Tim Ream deal to get done, even though it is worrying that it's taken this long. And then maybe Idan Toklamane comes into the first team or Crown Legacy or another addition. So if you add a DP10 to this group and they are going to try to spend money, I don't know where this one is going to land. I don't know who the targets are, but I am firmly expecting them. I borderline can guarantee that they're going to add a DP over the next 2 weeks. If that DP is really good, and again, that's a big if, and that's easy to talk about it. Oh yeah, they'll just get a 10 out of 10 signing. But if they do that, they're in the Red Bulls NYCFC. I think they're in that second tier really firmly with the upside to move up because of like they have the foundation, they have the defense, they have the structure, they have all of that. What they need to do is sprinkle in some quality. And Liel Abada, I think, is good quality, really good quality. Sorry, if you get a player that's say better than him, and same thing with Swiderski, if they sign somebody who's their best player, they could legitimately be one of the best teams in the league, I believe.
Okay.
Sorry, hold on. Let me. That was too strong at the end. Like I wouldn't put. I'm revising that because that's really dismissive of Miami, Cincy, Columbus, like Galaxy, LAFC, right? Like, but like I would put them up at the top of that next tier pretty quickly if they sign a DP10 who's awesome and hits immediately.
You're like live editing, and you don't need to. I think you're in a good spot. They are the second best defense in the league. They're currently 6th in the Eastern Conference. Like, yeah, I think it's fair to say that if they added their best player and got better, they immediately go into the home field advantage top 4 in the East, which is now in the top 5 or 6 in the league. And like, that's what you're talking about. So I think that's fine in the way you say it. One of the things that's odd to me is they are the second best defense in the league. So talking about adding a center back, I think is a little bit weird. But I get it in that, like, one, Melanda's probably not long for this. And so you'll have already built in that. Plus, you get some depth. You can let Tim Ream sort of settle in and find his feet. You could play 3 if you want to. You could slide pivot a little bit higher. We saw him last year start as a D-mid at times for this team. So it gives you a little bit of optionality. And if you are trying to convert yourself into a better attacking team, having Tim Ream's passing would really help you there. Especially if you bring in that 10 or whatever. The 10, I agree, like, that's the move to make. If it was me, I would just keep Swiderski. I don't understand any of this. I still think he's a very good player. He is not a top-end DP. People will tell me all day that he's a high-level TAM player, and he's not a DP. That's fine. I would actually say most MLS teams don't hit on all 3 DP signings. So, like, if the worst thing that happened was he's a borderline DP, that's fine. He shouldn't be the best player on a team. He shouldn't be the best player on a roster. Like, that's just a reality. But he shouldn't, like, if you go out and sign that player, then he's not. And you're in an okay spot. And I would say for a 10 to come in, what could be a better situation than having Abada on one wing? Vargas has looked pretty good. Tavash has looked pretty good as well. Ajamang and Swiderski. Like, that makes life easy for a chance creator to come into that team, hit the ground running, and be successful pretty quickly. So I had Charlotte in my list of, like, I don't know, we're going to name teams. I was going to name them as well. I tuned in for them immediately. That was the first game I put on for Leagues Cup last night. And it was the game I stuck with the longest because, one, Cruz Azul are fun. And, like, that was a cool matchup back and forth. Obviously, it ends 0-0. I guarantee you, if I'm watching it, no goals are being scored. And the other game was, like, 97 goals.
Their goalkeeper was Hollywood, though, so I enjoyed that. The sweeper keeper and not just, like, clearing the ball out. He was taking these, like, deft little touches. And more or less, like it was like a matador, like, baiting, like, Swiderski.
It was good stuff. But, like, Swiderski played as a 10 behind Daniel Rios and was successful. Why can't he play as a 10 off of Patrick Ajamang, who's a better player and has scored goals? I find very odd as well. And I think the way they've handled the center forward position for 2+ years now has been bizarre. Like, Capetti was bizarre. Capetti over Ajamang. Ajamang then pushing Capetti out. Like, the whole thing They just seem to be lost at that position, and yet have still gotten quality out of the super draft, which is like shocking in MLS, and really fortunate for them. So I agree with you.
Fortunate's a little mean. Like I think that's down to their scouting and development. Like what they've done with Crown Legacy, I think is really good. So I would just push back at that.
Yes, fine. I'm not going to give them full credit for Ajamong being in the draft and them drafting him. That is not them developing an attacking player. And then they tried to keep him down as long as possible as well. Shout out to Justice for Patrick Ajamong and Aja Gang. I'm going to name my first team, and it's the Portland Timbers. I don't know that anyone confuses me more this year than Portland. There are, I'd say, the majority of games where they don't look like a competitive contender in MLS. The defensive numbers are really, really bad across the board. Some of that is availability, like Maxime Crépeau being gone for large stretches. I've also said this a bunch of times. Crépeau is a big game player. You want him as your starter. He will help you win playoff games. He falls asleep over the course of regular seasons, and he is like a mid-table MLS starting goalkeeper over the course of a season, and then he will be the best goalie in the playoffs. So you have to take some of the good with the bad there. They have still struggled to sign quality center backs. Now they're playing Kamal Miller at left back purely when he is the best center back on this roster. And Juan David Mosquera can't defend, which is great because he's a huge attacking piece, except you might have the best attack in the league. Like you may not actually need that addition when you look at Jonathan Rodriguez in the team now, Evander being healthy, what they get from whether it's Santi Moreno or Anthony or whoever else they want to start out on the other wing. They picked up Mason Toya as well, which I don't get because they're like the last team in the league that needs a legitimate center forward. So this is, to me, the biggest variable team of like you tune in and 1 week they will look like MLS Cup contenders and the next week they will look like they're not a playoff team, and they will cycle between the two pretty much every 25 to 35 minutes during a game. But they are fun to watch because they will score goals and they will give up goals. So like if they are, especially if they're home because the atmosphere is good and all that, if they are playing, they're on my TV all the time, and for good and bad, they are entertaining, and yet they are still a mystery.
Yeah, they were high up on my watchability rankings this year for that reason because, like, incredible attack, completely wide open defense, and again, that's something that they're trying to fix this summer. But for now, for neutrals, this is absolutely one of my favorite teams to watch for, again, the good and the bad if you're a Timbers fan. What I would say, like, I like Kamal Miller at left back and playing like that elbow back role where he's like technically left back, but he's not, like he's like playing more like a third center back because
Can I push back on this before you even say anything?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't like it if Jonathan Rodriguez is playing as a quote unquote left winger because he doesn't go out wide.
Yeah.
And you
that's
cut
true.
Evander will go out there and find the game out there and like, okay, but you lose a ton of space on the field.
Yeah.
If both of those players are on your left wing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that, yeah, I don't know how you remedy that, but again, I think that trade-off is better than trying to defend like they had been. Like having, like they just need to have more numbers back in defense because. Oh yeah, just
Bravo and Mosquera on the field together is a train wreck.
That's what I'm saying. Like again, fair. But like, and the problem is,
Go
is
get
that
DeJuan
Jones. But both of them. Like they're like, and you only have Bravo and Mosquera. Like, if you're telling them not to overlap, then like you shouldn't be playing them. That's kind of my point too. Is that like, okay, then don't play one of them. So, if they're not going to go to like a legitimate actual back three and then have Bravo play as a wing back rather than like a left back and a back four, but then that takes away another number from attack. So none of these solutions are perfect, and Kamal Miller at left back to have two more center backs on the field is, I think, my imperfect preferred role for this team. But again, we'll see what happens. They're trying to add a DP central midfielder this summer. They could trade either Eric Williamson or Christian Paredes. I've heard more momentum for Paredes than Williamson over the past few weeks, maybe because Williamson's playing more, and I think that Paredes fits more teams. Like before the Red Bulls were finalizing Gubamin, and I think we're going to talk about the Red Bulls are going to be one of my teams in a few minutes. Before the Red Bulls were finalizing the deal for Gubamin, they made an offer for Christian Paredes. I assumed that was as they were cycling through targets and figuring out, oh, maybe if we can get him for cheap, we'll do this instead. But like, I think part of why there's a more robust market for Paredes, as far as I know at least, is because I think he fits more places than of the teams that need a central midfielder. And I think namely the Red Bulls are coming to mind because everybody knew that they needed to replace Amaya. Columbus would have made more sense for Williamson, except Sean Zawadzki's locked that position down, and they have some other players that they could put there. So, yeah, there's some momentum that Paredes could be traded. Like I'm assuming one of Paredes or Williamson will go if a DP central midfielder comes in. And again, all of that's the plan. You said you were a little confused about Mason Toy. I don't think it's a big deal because that's at best a backup center forward, if not the third string, if you're going to play Rodriguez through the center. Fogazza, they're probably going to loan him to somewhere. Like, he just hasn't played enough, and he's taking up an international slot. It's not, there's no real, like, doesn't make sense for anybody. It doesn't make sense for the player himself to be here not playing, and then them to be using an international slot on him. So that's more where the Mason Toy trade was.
The Mason Toy one, by the way, I don't get it, and I don't really care. I guess what's confusing to me is, like, there are teams that need center forwards, and I would have thought in the trade offers that would have come in, someone would have beat Portland being like, oh, he'll actually play for us, where, like, in Portland, as you said, he should be third string. Let me say this on Paredes and Williamson. I get that. They are pretty much the same age on the same contract, and Paredes has a green card, so there's no international spot.
True.
Paredes' game is simpler. I think Williamson has a ceiling to be a difference maker for an MLS team, but you have to be willing to give him the keys to a ton of your attack. Like, he is not just, I will cycle possession and keep the ball for you. There are teams in MLS that don't have that talent that he could be for them, where I think Paredes slots in pretty cleanly for a lot of teams where they're like just looking for someone to work hard and do the job. What I would go back to is like Georgi Mihailovic. In going from Chicago to Montreal, Montreal was like, oh, you're the guy. And then you saw his ceiling and like his elevation into an MLS MVP convo and all those things. I think Williamson could be the same. But I don't know that he could do the job for a team where they're like, please just cover ground and work hard behind XDPs and whatever other attacking pieces we have. He fits in pretty cleanly with Portland because Chara is so special and like he doesn't need to do too much of that. But like, I think I said it when we brought up the Williamson trade rumors. Like, if I'm an RSL or an FC Dallas or one of those teams that doesn't spend a ton in those positions or has some opening, like, he could be a ceiling raiser for one of those clubs. Yeah. And he will probably be around for the next few years. And so, like, you've got the opportunity to bring in a pretty good player, and his market is down right now. But I could understand less creative teams being like Christian Paredes is a safe bet to bring into our group.
Yeah, I'm all of that. Am I up to pick a team?
Well, let me just throw in there, Portland plays Colorado in Leagues Cup this week. Colorado's on my list. We've talked about Colorado a bunch already. They are very fun to watch. They're super high pressing, but they play open. Cole Bassett's finding the game in cool spots. Rafa Navarro is actually one of the best 1v1 attackers in the areas he's in, which is wild. Jonathan Lewis is on form right now, and if he's not, you've got other options. Calvin Harris is finally healthy. They're fun. They're good. They're for real. I think in watching them, it's how for real are they? Like, as you watch these games and games stage shift into like, okay, people now think they're good, so they're going to set up to make life hard for Colorado rather than play their own game. How good are they to overcome those things? But they're really fun. The Rocky Mountain Cup celebration was cool. It was cool for Chris Armas, who's a really good soccer guy, who deserves good things, and he needed the right job and the right role, and I hope this is it for him, and like it works out. And so I think they've been awesome to watch. It will be also a cool litmus test of like Colorado went and got pasted at Portland in the opening game of the season, 5-0, I think it was, 5-1, whatever. Yeah. So like, where are they now, even though you've got some international players missing and all that other stuff?
Yeah, again, those are two teams that graded very well in my watchability algorithm, super serious committee of one stuff. So that's a game that I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
So now you can go.
Oh, can I? Am I allowed to, sir? Would that be okay with you?
Honestly, I would have preferred for you to have just gone and not waited for me. I thought we were working on growth here.
Yeah, for me, the Red Bulls, again, and like, we don't get to watch them for a while now. So for me, it's more about off the field. Like this Gubamine deal, again, like I like it a lot as a TAM. Don't love it as a DP, but again, like I was saying on Tuesday, I believe that it might end up being as a DP this year and then a a DP this year and then TAM starting next in the winter. I still don't necessarily love that, but if they get the right young center forward in, then I think it'll be all right. But I am worried because U22 initiative by nature, it's not like look at so Andres Gomez is they reclassified him to a young DP, but he came in as U22 initiative. Like he wasn't an impact player immediately. You could see the flashes, you could see the talent, you could see the moments, you could see what it could be. But over the first 6 months, it wasn't this. It wasn't anywhere close to this. And I think that's the norm for U22 initiative signings. And I'm a little bit worried for the Red Bulls that, yes, Gubamine I think is going to make them better immediately. And that'll be good, again, as long as he's fit and in form. But this team is dying out for another goal scorer. And to rely on another U22 initiative signing is super risky. And again, even if it's Roko Simic, who I think would be a really good signing if they could get it done, even if it's somebody like that, like that's still a lot to ask of a 20-year-old center forward. Like, hey, by the way, come in and we spent $5 million on Dante Van Zier and he's just not scoring at all. Can you do that now? 20-year-old just getting to New Jersey or the greater New York City area in a new league and everything else. Good luck. Like, save the team, save the attack. Like, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, they're a better team with Gubamine than without him. The question is, what type of allocation is he? And then how does that affect the way they improve this team otherwise? Because, I think he'll be a really good soccer player. I think he'll be fun to watch. I think it's some of what they were hoping Drew Yearwood would give them. It's some of what Frankie Amaya gave them. I think the hope would be you combine both of them and it's at a higher level. Yeah. But it's not exactly putting the ball in the back of the net. And again, with no Forsberg, they haven't done that. You are in this weird goal scorer by committee thing, which is where they have been basically since BWP left, where it was like, let's throw Brian White and Tom Barlow and Elias Mano. Like, let's just keep throwing all these players out.
And let's get rid of Brian White.
For sure. Well, that's because they couldn't score for the team.
And they could score. They weren't playing him.
Oh my God, so much New Jersey energy right now, just protecting.
If you are, look at his goal scoring record in Vancouver. He's the same player. He's just playing more.
Okay, so
Googling stats.
I'm Googling stats.
No, I'm not going to filibuster for you. I'm going to make you try to talk.
He scored 9 goals in 2019 for the Red Bulls. So you've got that. He scored 1 in 2018. He scored 5 in 2020, which was a weird year. So that was his stats, and then scored 0 in 5 games in 2021. So he had one good year. You are right. He could have played him more. All right, respect. Listen, I'm a Brian White fan. What?
The way that he scored 0. He played 194 minutes before they traded him in 2021.
Yeah, that year didn't.
And count. then he had 12 goals and 5 assists in 1900 minutes for the Vancouver Whitecaps. Like, give me a break.
And then in 2022, he scored 4 goals for the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Brian White. If the Red Bulls had Brian White.
I just think if on the list of things the Red Bulls have screwed up over the years, I don't think trading Brian White is the highest on that list.
I think it's up there, dude. If his name was Brian Vitovic from Serbia, somewhere that they brought in from abroad.
You love creating a new character.
What I'm saying, but because he's Brian White from Fleming and the Red Bulls too, it's there's always going to be somebody better. I don't know.
Of all the clubs in the league, they're not the team that doesn't value the guys coming through their own system.
Not this guy.
He wasn't shooting and he wasn't scoring in the league, and so they traded. They played Tom Barlow for 47 years. This is not the team that's like, oh, you're from New Jersey, we're never going to play you. They are the team that is spending money on anyone from New Jersey, and then they just suck. This is a disgusting image. If you are not watching the show right now, if you're listening to a podcast, you need to go log on to YouTube. I will clip this. Tom is wearing his pure offensive baseball guy sunglasses and his mug and his New Jersey ODP t-shirt being like, talk to me later on this one. But I think all that frustration for Red Bulls, whatever we were talking about before, is totally fair. And on that note, I think we're good for the show.
I don't got anything left. I don't have anything left.
We have one thing left to say. If you do not subscribe to the Patreon, you cannot get into the Discord. You cannot vote for my U22 team over Tom's. We have a commanding lead in the poll, as we should, because my team is clearly elite and better. And
we're looking at voter
fraud. Things like that. What'd you say?
I said we're looking into voter fraud is all I'll say on the matter. While legalities are playing out, I cannot comment.
Rainman34 says bring out the bronzer for Tom Bogert over there and the sunglasses and the whole other look. We're getting there as EG gets intense in the chat because now we're talking Red Bulls backup center forwards and this is number one conversation. But if you want to vote for my team, which you should want to do, you should subscribe to the Patreon, get into the Discord. You could do that. You could chat with us. We'll be on the whole weekend. We'll be talking Olympics. I believe myself and Casey will be doing an Olympic post-game show for the U.S. women's game against Japan. That is Saturday. The game is at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We will be on live right after to recap things for you, hopefully help preview a U.S. women's semifinal matchup, which would put them in a guaranteed to play for medal point of view. The Australia game was very good. They have looked really good in this tournament. Obviously, they do not have Sam Coffey for this next game coming up. Tierna Davidson, it feels like, probably won't be back either. So a lot to talk about, a lot going on there, as well as talking Canada and everything else. Because it pays to cheat is what Canada has taught us over the last few days. Shout out to them. No, but shout out to those players for overcoming and fighting through and all that's gone on there. And then we'll be back next week talking all things MLS. So you get the Discord, you get the salary cap table, you get the depth chart, you get to be able to chat with us, you get into the mailbag, and you get access to the private happy hour Zooms that we're going to be doing continuously going forward. So on that note, Tom, feels pretty good?
Feels great.
Feels great. All right, we are out of here. Thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone for watching live and chatting and in the comments. And thank you to everyone for listening as well. And we'll talk to you all again very, very soon.